Welcome to this orientation module for our Business Spanish course for this semester. Uh, Welcome everyone. We'll start with some learning objectives for this specific module. Things we would like to achieve with this time we're going to be spending with this first video. At the end of this module, students will be able to hopefully receive a brief introduction to the structure of the course, go over the learning outcomes of the semester, get a walkthrough around the course components, the structure of the course, and the required materials. We'll also describe the assignments and overall expectations for the course. Likewise, we'll examine the requirements for success in the course, and we'll look at a few pieces of advice that might be useful to you as you plan for success in this course Spanish 323R. There will be a short assignment based on the content so that we can get started and start working right away. So, as I said, bienvenidos, bienvenidas, welcome to the class. I thought it might be a good idea to start with brief introductions so that you get to know a little bit who is behind this course and who the instructor is and his background, etc. So in this case, obviously, my name is Samuel Lopez Alcalá. I'm originally from Madrid, Spain, and I moved to the United States to join the faculty at the Spanish and Portuguese department back in August of 2010. So it's been a while now. And I accepted a position to teach mainly translation courses. We offer a translation BA at the department, and together with my three colleagues at the moment, we train translators in one of the very few BAs in Spanish translation currently being offered in the Western United States. Both by education and training, as well as in my profession or career, I'm a translator. I obtained, or I was obtained a BA, or what we call licenciatura, in translation and interpreting from my alma mater, Universidad Pontificia Comillas, in Madrid, and I graduated in the year 2000. I continued my studies, in this case, graduate studies, and in 2004 I obtained the equivalent to a master's degree in human and social sciences. I started the first year of my master's in La Universidad de Alcalá de Henares, my second hometown, with coursework in applied linguistics, and moved back to my alma mater, Universidad Pontificia Comillas, in Madrid to finish my the second year for my master's. And there was a parenthesis. My original plan, as far as my education went, was to obtain a doctorate in translation and interpreting, but life sometimes takes different paths, and I decided to spend some time honing my skills as far as business was concerned. And I thought an MBA, in this case an MBA executive, because I was working full-time as an international business development director for a translation company in Madrid. I thought an MBA might be a good idea to add to my curriculum vitae or to my resume, because you could have several applications. I could maybe go up in the management ladder at the time in the language services industry equipped with an MBA, and I could also improve and know more about the terminology and the basic concepts of several areas of business, which for a translator would also be or prove useful. So I completed my MBA executive also in my alma mater, the Universidad Pontificia Comillas, in 2009. And then after this position came up or opened up in 2010, I went back to work and finished my PhD, my dissertation. And in 2012, I flew back to Madrid, Spain for my dissertation defense. My doctorate was officially named Doctorado en Ciencias Humanas y Sociales, with an emphasis on translation studies. And my dissertation, which I had to complete in record time in order to keep the job here at BYU, was focused on a comparative study of the first Spanish translations of the Book of Mormon. I am passionate about translation history and studying the past, the translational past and translators that went before us, and learning something new about the past and writing about it. So that's my main area of specialization, in addition to translation theory and translation training. But in this case, I think my experience in business and my experience in the language industry and my MBA, I think served me well to add some perhaps useful background to this business Spanish or language for the professions courses, which I've been teaching almost from the start. When I came in 2010, I think I started teaching Spanish 323, maybe a couple of years or a year and a half after I arrived. So that's a little bit about myself. Let's have a look at the course itself. We will be looking at the main components of the course. We'll be looking at some of the provide a brief walkthrough around the components of the course and the assignments and the weight they have in the overall grade. We'll look over the materials, the required materials for the course, and we will also have a look at an in-depth description of the assignments, and then we will also provide, I hope, some useful advice to help you tackle the assignments and succeed in this course this semester. So the course description, obviously we'll be exploring the Spanish language, but not the Spanish language in general, or what we can call the general or level of the Spanish language, but we'll be looking at specialized contexts and specialized language, what we call language for special purposes. So an advanced or good knowledge of grammar, general vocabulary, and spelling and style is expected. And on top of that, we will build additional layers of specialized language skills, which are used in business situations for business-related communications. Hopefully, we'll be able to enhance the student's ability to communicate effectively in commercial and corporate settings, both in the United States and abroad, focusing obviously in interaction with Spanish-speaking clients and Spanish-speaking counterparts in business. For this, we need a solid foundation of specialized vocabulary, basic vocabulary in different areas of business. We also need to be conversant with phraseology, the type of discourse styles that are used in communication in business situations and business contexts. And although in this case we will not be focusing, this course does not focus on culture. Language is considered, we can consider language a part of culture, obviously, or a vehicle for a certain culture. So in this case, we will be focusing on lexical or vocabulary, terminological units, basic concepts and notions in business, and phraseology and style. Some of the contexts in which we will be or that we will be developing or studying and increasing or acquiring our vocabulary and communication skills in Spanish will be the different types of companies from a legal standpoint, management, banking and accounting, property and real estate, plant and equipment, the business office space in the information era and digital era, the human resource aspect of companies, goods and services, marketing. We will be looking at a big deal, a great deal of marketing. A couple of chapters in our textbook are focus on marketing, finance and accounting, foreign markets and entry in foreign markets, and import export, among others. I think it might be a good idea to maybe stop here and try to engage a little bit with the content. Stop the video and go back to the previous, rewind to the previous slide. And if you have a copy of the textbook, look at the table of contents and try to come up with the Spanish translations for the bullet points referring to the contexts of communication or the thematic or subject areas that will be covered in the course, at least in the textbook. Try to come up with translations or equivalents in Spanish. If you still don't have a copy of the textbook, try to Google some of this information and see if you can find equivalents to each one of those areas or subject areas. So rewind to the previous slide, stop the video and work a little bit on finding Spanish equivalents to those areas and make a short list of those just to get started with our vocabulary. Good. Let's continue with our course description. As I mentioned earlier, the Spanish 323R, Spanish for the Professions, the business Spanish class, will help you develop your ability to conduct business in Spanish successfully, or at least to communicate in business situations, as we mentioned earlier. So this course is what we can call a course. It's not a grammar course, but it goes further. It moves to what we call language for special purposes, or languages within languages. Dr. Josefa Gómez de Enterría, who taught at the Universidad de Alcalá de Henares, was one of my instructors and supervisors in my master's, was a specialist in language for special purposes, or lenguas para fines específicos, as we call them in Spanish. And she defined these languages in the following way. And she was actually paraphrasing from a work by Lerat in 2008. She defines languages for special purposes thus: las lenguas de especialidad, también llamadas lenguas o lenguajes especializados, son las lenguas de las ciencias, las técnicas y las profesiones. Estas surgen y se desarrollan paralelamente al progreso de las diferentes ciencias y técnicas y son empleadas por los hablantes para llevar a cabo la transmisión de los conocimientos especializados. So they are appendages or sub-areas or layers of general language, and language for special purposes are vehicles for the transmission of knowledge between individuals and in different sciences and technical areas. They are, you probably have experience with language for special purposes. That's what you do in college. When you pursue a college degree, you are being exposed to the specific vocabulary and structures and phraseology and concepts of different classes or different subject areas. Becoming a college student and graduating in a certain major or minor, in a way, is to become a master of that language or specific language elements, vocabulary and phraseology and concepts and their applications in your chosen field. So language for special purposes are essential subcategories of language that, in addition to general structures of language that we use for every day, purposes, to talk to speak to our friends, to communicate in very basic situations. They allow us to communicate in more technical environments and to exchange more complex messages about complex subject areas of the world with other individuals who may be specialists or not in that area. So in this case, we're going to be focusing on language for the Spanish used in business to help us communicate ideas and notions related to the different areas of subtopics of business with other individuals in business-related situations. So obviously, you are here, you're taking this class, so this is a little bit of preaching to the choir or preaching to the converts, as they say in Spanish, predicar al converso. Why do we need a foreign language? Well, obviously, it is a fact. Some of this are just might be old percentages or data, but I think these figures help us to realize the importance of foreign language education in business in a globalized environment. 72.1% of consumers spend most of or all of their time on websites in their own language. We tend to obviously read content and consume content that is written in our language or created in our language. 72.4% of consumers said that they would be more likely to buy a product with information in their own language. 56.2% of consumers said that the ability to obtain information in their own language is more important than price. All this information, all these percentages come from a somewhat dated book by De Palma, Sargent and Beninato on who went on to establish a localization and translation consulting firm called Common Sense Advisory. So as we can see, language and familiarity with one's language is a fundamental component of content that is created online. And people tend to obviously gravitate towards products and multimedia products or any product for that matter that is or service that is intelligible, understandable to them. And the final an interesting quote from this book by De Palma, Sargent and Beninato is that when we factor in language competence, they found in their research that people with no or low English skills were 6 times more likely not to buy from Anglophone sites than their countrymen who were proficient in English. So obviously, if you want to sell them, talk to them in their own language. Now, we can add to this why a foreign language we can focus on Spanish a little bit. Why Spanish? Obviously, if you look at the map by the avatars of the different the course of events in history from 1842 on, or I would say from 1492 rather, the Spanish language became widespread and we can find millions of speakers in different countries in the world where the old territories of the Spanish empire were found until the demise of the empire in 1898 in the American-Cuban or Spanish-American War. So just a few facts that I think are interesting regarding Spanish. More than 500 million people in the world speak Spanish, according to the statistics that I've been able to check, especially from or by an institution sponsored by the Spanish government called Instituto Cervantes, with different branches across the world. Spanish ranks second as word language. At least last time this data these facts and figures were checked by number of speakers, and it also ranks second as a language for international communication. Demographically, the world population percentage of native Spanish speakers is on the rise, while the native Chinese and English speakers populations are on the decline. By 2030, these experts are projecting 7.5% of the world's population will be Spanish speaking, a total of 535 million people, which exceeds projections for other languages. Russian, the projection is 2.2%, French 1.4%, and German 1.2%. In 3 or 4 generations, this information also adds 10% of the world's population will understand each other in Spanish. By 2050, the United States will be the first Spanish-speaking country in the world, which is a remarkable fact if you think about it. And the number of students of Spanish as a foreign language is also increasing. I recently read a report according to which Spanish is being studied by Chinese children as the first foreign language, or L2, in many schools in mainland China. It's fashionable right now in China to learn Spanish as a foreign language. If you look at this graph, you will see, this is from the Washington Post. Again, the source is Instituto Cervantes. But if you notice, if you look at the ranking of the top 10 Spanish-speaking nations in the world, in connection with the information in the previous slide, you can see that the first, by population, Mexico is the #1 Spanish-speaking nation in number of speakers, followed by the United States. And I would bet that this number, this almost 53 million people, is already obsolete, and it has been surpassed in 2020. Colombia, Spain. Look at Spain. Spain is number 4, at least when this graph was created, was number 4 by number of speakers. So the metropole, the country that exported this language since Columbus left the coasts in the peninsula to traverse the Atlantic in 1492, we'll see that 46.7 million people compared to almost 53 million people. So by numbers of native speakers, or speakers in this case, we see that the United States is at least second in the world. So this means for us, leaving political and immigration considerations aside, it is obviously useful for anyone wishing to sell or make business or do business with these 53 million people. Bear in mind Common Sense Advisory's research that people tend to use services that are offered to them in their own language that they can understand, by people they can understand. It is useful to know your Spanish, your business Spanish, in order to make business with them. So any customer-facing, public-facing job position will benefit. Your employability will increase if you add Spanish to your skill set, just by the number of people willing to spend money and who speak Spanish in the United States. So the economic value of a language, can you value economically, can you put a figure to a language? Well, the Instituto Cervantes has tried to do that with Spanish. In North America, Mexico, United States, and Canada, and Spain combined represent 78% of purchasing power by Spanish speakers. So there's as I say, there's a 78% of purchasing power if you can access that group of potential buyers. This quote, compartir el español aumenta un 290% el comercio bilateral entre los países hispanohablantes, obvious this is nothing new. If two countries share have common denominators in terms of language and culture, they tend to make more business between them is facilitated. In 2011, the cultural industry as a whole employed more than 488,700 people, and the number of companies operating in the industry amounted to 103,000, or more than 103,000. So we have obviously all this cultural industry is flourishing in this regard, and the language component adds to this. Spanish publishing companies own 162 subsidiaries across 28 countries, more than 80% in South America. This highlights the importance of a common language when investing in third countries. More than 940,000 tourists visited Spain in 2012 for educational purposes only. Much of the travel falls under the category of language tourism. So after a little bit of the idea was to try to showcase the importance of not only adding Spanish to one's skill set, but to have knowledge or skills in language for special purposes, in this case, business Spanish. So let's have a look at the learning outcomes. This is a very important component of the course. This is actually for me, is a starting point. You should look at the learning outcomes. The learning outcomes should be a statement of what is hoped that the students in a course or study in any learning initiative will be able to accomplish, do, learn, etc. In this case, at the end of the course, students will be able to, 1, draft a selection of core business documents effectively and accurately, incorporating feedback and adhering to textual genre conventions in the field. So writing is a very important component of this course, and the goal of being able to draft a selection of core business documents, certain textual genres, in an effective and accurate way, and incorporating feedback and obeying the textual genre conventions of format, style, etc. is our first learning outcome for the course. Second, in this case, the knowledge, the vocabulary, and the content should be students should be able or should be equipped to discuss and comment business situations. In this case, it will be in writing, given the modality, the course modality, and these views will be presented individually. The group component, unfortunately, will not be present in this modality of the course, but students should be able to comment and discuss real business situations and present these ideas professionally in the assignments of that will be described later on. Finally, understand and interpret audiovisual segments and readings in Spanish discourse, business Spanish discourse, and engage in meaningful review and comprehension activities of such content. In this case, you will be presented with business cases and news articles, and you will be able to respond to these articles in writing in a meaningful way and show your comprehension skills and your ability to analyze and discuss this business related content. Well, these are the learning objectives for the course, and you should judge how productive the course or any course was at the end of the semester by going back and looking at these learning objectives and comparing your improvement or progress as far as or in when it comes to these learning objectives specifically. Have I improved? Have I achieved these results? Good. The materials for the course, which will be an important resource to help us achieve these learning objectives. As you know, we have two main components or two main materials for the course. The first one is Éxito Comercial. This textbook, as any textbook, there's no perfect textbook, obviously, But this textbook, I think, has certain pros and cons. The positive or the benefits of this textbook is comprehensive, and it covers uh, um, subjects in each of its chapters. It covers subject areas or sub areas of specialization in business that I think are quite positive in their breadth and coverage. They provide sort of like a short MBA in terms of in a linguistically applied manner. They provide plenty of material. They are very dense. I selected the most important, what I think are the most important pages, but I think this is a great resource that will help you to increase your reading skills and your vocabulary and your ability to discuss in Spanish basic notions and concepts buried in a range of business related areas, from management to finance to accounting, etc., as we mentioned earlier on. The second set of materials for the course will be our business packet. This can be purchased. Hopefully the bookstore has printed enough copies for you to obtain. This packet includes a selection. I've tried to cut down the number as compared to previous editions of the course. I've tried to keep the number of business cases to the bare minimum, to not only to make it more cost effective, but also to focus your time into the most worthwhile cases that I've been able to find in Spanish. Some of these cases are translations from English, which is a drawback in the sense, depending on how good the translation is, obviously. That's subjective to a certain degree, but not so from the point of view of quality. I think these translations, when you have to, I've also tried to locate as many business cases originally drafted in Spanish as possible. And I think this packet provides a good selection of different real business situations from different companies in different sectors or different industries to provide some variety and some interesting food for thought for your reading and discussion and learning. So I strongly suggest that you procure both resources as quickly as possible, so you can start working on them right away. So both are required, and you should, if you have any questions as to how to obtain them, don't hesitate to contact me via email. Let's have a look at the assignments. I think it's worthwhile to have a look at the assignments. This information is also on Learning Suite. If you look at content and the content, you will see a section to your left on the screen. You will see also a section entitled Assignment Description, and you click on it, you will be able to scroll up and down, and most of this information will also be there. But I think it's useful to provide you with an overview of the assignments. These assignments are linked to the learning outcomes. They are here, or they have been developed. They have been developed to provide you with learning experiences that will be conducive to the achievement of the learning outcomes. They are not supposed in the least to be busy work or to just keep you busy working at pointless assignments. In this case, these assignments and these tasks are all meant to help you achieve the learning outcomes set out earlier on. If you have a look at this slide, you also have this pie chart in Learning Suite. But if we start to have a look at you will see in this pie chart you have the percentages, the grade, the weight for each of the assignments towards the total grade. If you look at the top, you will see business assignment sheets, 5% they're worth 5% of the grade. Then we have the exams, the final exam 15%, the midterm exam 15% as well. If we continue, Clockwise, we'll see in gray, we have the writing assignments, also 15%. We also have a gold section there, business news reports worth 20% of the grade. If we look at it, the pale blue, we have textbook activities, 15%. And then we finally have the green section there, business case project, which is also worth 15%. Let's have a look at each one of these assignments quickly to provide, as I say, an overview for you to have a look at a general view of each one of these assignments. If we look at the exams, there will be 2 exams in the semester, the midterm exam and the final exam. Both of these exams will have between 50 to 100 questions worth 1 or 2 points each, depending on the number of questions. And both exams will cover aspects or content from the textbook. The midterm will cover chapters 1 through 7 of the textbook, and then from 8 to 14 will be included or tested in the final exam. So as for the format, both exams will be multiple choice exams, and they will have questions based on the content of these 2 sections of the textbook, and you will be provided with sample questions so that you can have an idea of the overall the style, approach, and format of these questions so that you can prepare for the exams in the best way possible. Where will this be taken? Well, you see where and when. The dates can be found in Learning Suite under assignments. They can be also found under the exams tab, and they will also appear in the schedule and the dashboard as the time approaches. Both will be taken in Learning Suite. They are obviously individual, strictly individual assignments or tasks, and they will be taken, as I say, online in Learning Suite at the dates that will be you will be reminded of later on down the road in the semester. Then we have the writing assignments. We will have 4 individual writing assignments or compositions. The first one will be una carta comercial A, the first carta comercial or business letter. Then we have another one, another business letter or carta comercial B. Then we also have our third one will be a curriculum, a version of a curriculum vitae or resume in Spanish, which I think will be useful for you in case you don't have a current resume in Spanish. And you will see that we have several differences in terms of format for a curriculum vitae or resume in Spanish. That's our assignment number 3. And finally, our assignment or text number 4 will involve an analysis or commentary of one of the business packet cases. And it will be a little bit different from the other 3 in format, length, and so on. Let's have a quick look at each one of them. Obviously, all of them will be delivered through Learning Suite by the deadlines, and the required format for this, for each one of these 4 compositions will be Microsoft Word. And this is important because I use the review and track changes functions or features of Microsoft Word so that you can have your feedback and your graded work returned to you, and it's easier to implement and check my feedback in these writing assignments if Microsoft Word is used. So I urge you to use this required format. Text 1, Carta Comercial A or Business Letter A. In this case, you will be offered 2 options. You will, from the point of view, remember that for each one of numbers 1 through 3, and number 4, text 4 to a certain point, to a certain degree. But remember that there are 2 components, 2 basic components that you need to be paying attention to. The first one is the content, obviously, and the other one is format, because we are dealing with textual genres or special types of texts that are used in specialized communication. So in this case, we are dealing with letters, with formal correspondence. You will have, from the point of view of topic or subject, you have 2 options: solicitud de presupuesto, a request for a quote, or carta de reclamación. You are expressing in the second, you are expressing your dissatisfaction with a service or a product that you have received. So you need to select one or the other. You need to formally request a quote, or formally request some compensation and express your dissatisfaction for a service or product that you're not happy with. You will select your option, and then you will have to write 250 words. The idea is to write around 250 words. So I'm not concerned if you go north of 250 words, but I would be concerned if you write 100 words or 150 words, you see. The idea is for everyone to write similar texts in terms of length. So take 250 as a reference. And when it comes to format, you will have a scanned document that will provide you with models of the and explanations of each one of the sections expected to be found in a letter. Not all of the sections that you will find in the model will appear in every single letter, but most of them will be found in the model. For text 2, our second business letter or carta comercial, students will receive will be writing a company to apply for a work position. So this is what we call una solicitud de trabajo o una solicitud de puesto de trabajo in Spanish. The format will be the same as for text 1 in the sense that we are writing a formal letter, but obviously the subject matter will be different, because in this case we will be expressing our interest in a certain opening or vacancy that we've found in LinkedIn or in a newspaper, etc. And it can be a real job or an imaginary job position. You can apply to your dream job if you so choose. In this case, you can select a real company or invent or come up with a company and write explaining why you are the best fit for the position and requesting perhaps an interview, etc., etc. Again, you will be using the format in the letter models that you can find under Documents in Learning Suite. Number 3 composition will be a curriculum vitae in Spanish. Again, you will be provided with several models actually of typical CVs or curriculum vitae or currículos in Spanish, and you will be able to write your own CV or create a CV for an individual that can also be an imaginary individual or avatar. Good. Number 4, the final composition will be, in this case, you will be doing some role play. You will take the perspective of the point of view of a consultant, and you will write a report in which you will identify a problem that a company has, and you will suggest solutions and an action plan to solve this problem. And the basis for this text 4 will be any of the cases found in the packet. So you can choose any of the cases and write about it. And under content documents, you will find a file entitled Ensayo sobre un caso de negocio nota técnica, which will be the rubric for this assignment. And you will be expected to follow this assignment, this rubric, and adhere strictly to its guidelines. Good. You can see in this screenshot where to find the models for your business letters 1 and 2 and for the resume or CV. If you click on Content, Documents, Cartas Comerciales, and you can see the models that will help you complete the format requirement for each one of these compositions, and you will find useful terminology and useful phraseology and an idea of the style that is required of this formal correspondence. I think they will be useful to you. If you have any questions about them, don't hesitate to ask. Good. So how will these writing assignments be graded? First of all, under documents, you will content documents, you will be able to find a list of useful documents that you will be using, templates and rubrics. One of them in Excel format is called is a rubric or clave in Spanish para la corrección de textos o composiciones. There you will find the explanation and abbreviation for each one of the errors or problems that I will identify or that might be identified or found in your compositions, so that you can check them and implement this in this feedback that you will receive. Basically, we will have two drafts for each one of these compositions. Draft one, or the first draft, or the first version, should be your best version, your best work. Give it your best effort. Is worth 75% of the total grade for that assignment. To obtain the remaining 25%, you will have to implement the feedback you will receive in the graded version of draft 1 in draft 2 and create a final clean Microsoft Word format version of that same composition with my feedback and corrections implemented or added. So the idea is not for you to make sure that you do not rewrite the whole thing. You're just required to create a final draft implementing my feedback specifically. You don't need to rewrite the whole composition. You will receive between 0 and 100 points for draft 1, and points will be deducted in an analytical way for textual, grammatical, stylistic problems in accordance with the rubric that you can find under documents. Then you will review, as I say, you will review each one of these 4 compositions, and you will create the final draft so that you can obtain the 100% potential points that you can receive for each one of these. The final draft, as I say, will not be a full rewrite. You will just be asked or expected to implement the feedback received in comments or in corrections made with track changes directly into the file. That's why I would like to re-stress the importance of using the MS or Microsoft Word format so that we can use the revision or review features of this word processing software. As I say, you can receive between 0 and 100 points. Errors will mean 1 point deducted from those 100 points in the first draft. And the final draft will receive either 0 or 100 points, depending on the successful implementation of my feedback as expected. Remember, 75% of the grade for the first draft and 25% for the second draft. So the second draft is not optional, it's a requirement. You want to complete the grade for each one of the compositions or writing assignments. As with all the assignments in the semester, you will be, or most of them at least, you will be submitting all 4 drafts via Learning Suite, and make sure that you check the deadlines well in advance to make sure that you comply with these deadlines, because there will be points taken for late submissions if these submissions are or late submissions are not cleared with me due to strange circumstances or difficult circumstances that you may encounter in the semester. Just check with me as a general rule for any problems, health related or otherwise, that you feel might prevent you from complying with a timeline or with a deadline in this case. Make sure you let me know well in advance so that we can negotiate an extension or see what can be done about them. If you continue looking at the pie chart, and we're looking at the different, we've looked at the exams, the writing assignments, and now we are going to be looking at different tasks that I group under the general or umbrella term of individual assignments. These individual assignments have to do with textbook activities, with your reading of business cases and your reporting on your reading of these business cases. And they also have to do with your reading of news articles in newspapers. I'm going to go through each one of these assignments in turn. If you look at the, if you click on the schedule tab rather in Learning Suite, you will see that you have two columns. The right-hand column includes comments, notes, recommendations, tips, additional information in general, and occasionally also includes links for submission of assignments. The left or center, because we also have the dates here to your right, to your left, the central or the center column normally includes these dates with the content that you are to study and do. If you look at the two sections, you will have to study certain content from the textbook or from the packet, and then you'll be asked to do something about this content that you have read, so you can apply your what you have learned in that content. And then with the orange button or the orange circle there, you will normally have assignments that need to be submitted on that date. So if we are to report on scheduled textbook activities, and the previous snapshot or screenshot rather showed an example of a day focused on the textbook, you will see that under the study section, you have selected pages or sections from the textbook Éxito Comercial. Remember to get the 6th edition, and you will have to, there's also under the do section, you have a selection of activities taken also from the textbook. The idea is for you to complete in full and in writing one activity under the do section. And this activity will have to do with the content, or will be related to the content under the study section. So you study that section from the textbook, and then you select one exercise. Occasionally there will be just one exercise. So when there's one, just complete that one that is listed there. If you have more than one, you are free to choose one activity and one only, and you need to complete it in full and in writing in a Microsoft Word file, and you are to submit this file in the under the appropriate date and appropriate submit link in Learning Suite to get credit for that textbook activity. So you need to select just one from the list when a day is focused on the textbook. Okay, and these activities appear under the section do, and they have to do with the content under the section study. So it should be pretty straightforward to find them. So you submit this these activities completed in a Word format, and obviously in Spanish, and you submit it via Learning Suite, clicking on the submit button, and make sure that you comply with the deadlines and check not only the day but the time when each one of the assignments close by clicking on the assignment under the assignment section in Learning Suite, or by clicking on the link for those activities that have a small orange dot by them under the schedule or the dashboard. So make sure that you comply with those times and dates to obtain full credit. Obviously, if you don't submit those exercises via Learning Suite, they will not receive credit. And the way to avoid that is to plan in advance and to make sure that you follow some of the recommendations, if not all of the recommendations that I will make at the end of the orientation of this orientation module. So that's for the textbook activities. There's also, in order to help us to achieve the learning objective of increasing our vocabulary and our reading comprehension, I have developed this additional task or individual task that has to do with reading or involves reading news pieces or news articles from newspapers. The idea is for you to read 3 newspaper articles a week. They can be of any length that you choose. You don't need to read a whole story with 3 columns or several pages. You can read a small article, maybe 1-2 paragraphs. But the important thing is that these news articles need to be read or need to be offered in Spanish-speaking outlets originally. So the idea is for you to select. They can be in any country. They can be any newspaper. But the idea is that you focus on, first of all, news readings that have to do with business. So you can go to the finance section, or you can in a general newspaper or general website or news website written in Spanish, or you can select a specialized venue or a newspaper specializing in economics, finance, and the corporate world in general. So once you've read, the idea is to, or not once you've read, as you read, you should be taking notes and completing a report. Under Home Documents, you will find a template called News Report Template. This template has several sections that you need to complete for each one of these 3 news pieces. So you would have basically 3 tables or 3 reports within this template per week. And once you complete these templates or these reports for each one of the news articles that you've read, you will, at the end of the week on Friday, you will upload a single file for that week containing 3 reports or 3 templates, or rather than templates, I should say tables. If you look at the report template file, you will see that it includes a table. This table, ideally, or it is expected that it's copied 3 times, and that you complete each one of these 3 tables within a copy of that file for each one of those articles that you read. You are asked to provide a short summary of the news piece in Spanish in each one of these reports. You are also required to record in these reports a set number of terms or expressions or words that you have learned in these articles. And the expectation is each Friday you will have to upload these 3 reports in a single file. So you will use several copies throughout the semester. You will use several copies of this report template to complete your reading and reporting on the news pieces. So if you look at, just to make sure that we know where to find it, I've added a screenshot here. You click on content, and then you click on documents. And when you click on documents, you will see the list of downloads or downloadable documents that you have here for the course. And highlighted here, you see the news report template. You download that news report template, and you will find the different sections that you have to complete for each weekly reading. And remember, we are to read 3 news reports per week, and we need to report on those 3 readings in a single copy of the news report template, which we are expected to upload by our Learning Suite each Friday. So that's the news portfolio. So don't forget to read 3 news reports or 3 news articles and submit the report for each one of the articles to obtain full credit for the week's readings. So you need to have those 3, otherwise there will be this a pass-fail category. We need to read those 3 articles, and we need to complete the report for each one of those articles and submit those 3 reports in a single file each week on Friday. If you're not familiar with news outlets in Spanish, I've suggested a few newspapers that I know written in Spanish, and they are published in Spain. You don't need to use those. Those are just selections to help you find venues in case you are unable to identify one of your liking. Those newspapers that I provide there, as I say, are just suggestions, but you are free to find newspapers, magazines, um, mainly preferably specialize in corporate or financial news because you need to read on in topics related to business. Um, they should be created or written by native speakers, and it might be a good idea to, or I expect you at least to find them in Spanish-speaking countries, which includes the United States. So if you find original material written by Spanish speakers for Spanish speakers in business topics, that's excellent. You can choose newspapers from any country in the world, any Spanish-speaking country in the world. But in case you can find them, I provided a list of them. You can find them scrolling down under the assignment description section. Um, you see, for instance, Expansión, that's a financial newspaper published in Spain. Cinco Días is also another financial newspaper. They tend to have um, when they specialized in, they're like the equivalents or maybe the counterparts of the Wall Street Journal or the Financial Times. These newspapers, especially in the hard copies or printed formats, they tend to have a salmon or pinkish color. That's why they are called in Spanish la prensa color salmón or la prensa salmón, in a metaphorical way. They When they say la prensa salmón, you know they're referring to the financial press or financial newspapers because of the color that they have for the paper they use to print the news on. And Cinco Días and Expansión, if memory serves, they are also salmon or pinkish in color in their internet or electronic versions. I've also provided some general newspapers in different ends of the political spectrum. Some are more left or liberal, like El País or Público. Others are more conservative, like El Mundo, La Razón, ABC. And I provided direct links to the sections dealing with the economy and financial topics. Remember that some of these newspapers will have premium content in the sense that you will need a subscription to access the full content, but some of them have all the content open to the casual reader. Others will be pay-per-view, but even in those pay-per-view newspapers will have occasional full-length articles that you can access without subscriptions. Needless to say, you don't need to buy a subscription for the course. You'll be able to find articles with no problem. I am not responsible, just as a reminder, I'm obviously not responsible for the content and the tone or the style or whatever you will be finding in the newspapers. So I urge you to be just to choose carefully and be responsible readers. Some of these newspapers occasionally you may find in them graphic content that might not be acceptable for every reader, but I trust your judgment as college students and judicious readers. Good. So we are moving along in the description and this long description, but I think it's important to describe this assignments in full, so you have an overview or an idea of what the course will be. Next in our description of the assignments are the individual business case sheet. This has to do with days that will be focusing on the business cases from the packet. So some days the content will be selections from the Éxito Comercial from our textbook. In other days you will be reading business cases from the packet. When you have a business case assignment, you will be asked to write and complete a business case sheet or a report on that case. And if you, my advice would be to have the template for the case or the business case sheet open side by side as you read and study the case, because you will be able to, if you follow the sections in the business case sheet or template, you will be guided in your reading. Sometimes it's difficult to read a case because they may be dense and have a lot of information. So the business case sheet will help you with prompts, questions, to identify the key information in each one of the cases. And you need to just complete those sections based on your reading of the case. If you have a look at this screenshot, you can see a typical day. For instance, January 20th is a Wednesday, and on the study we have the case number 1. In the topic is accounting, about Bruxelles Service Linguistique, or BSL, a translation company based in Belgium in Europe, and that's under study. You have to do, based on your reading, complete or completar the business case assignment sheet. Where can I find the assignment sheet template? As you can see, you have a link to submit it right below. If you click again on content and you go down to documents, you see highlighted there the business case assignment sheet in the list of useful documents for download. You will be using as many copies as needed, 1 copy, 1 file, 1 of each templates to complete per case from the packet. You can find them there and the documents. Very good. So to finish off, towards the end of the semester, you will have to complete a final project. This project is called individual business case presentation, or the business case project, which is divided in 2 phases or 2 parts. The first one is really simple. You will have to select one of the business cases from the packet, and my advice, although you are free to choose whichever business case you like, is to choose this for your presentation, the same business case you will be writing about for your composition 4. This will allow you to know the case more intimately and to basically kill two birds with the same stone. You will choose, as I say, one packet, and what you will do, you will create a PowerPoint presentation. Use as many slides as you need. I haven't set a requirement of a maximum number of slides. The presentation maybe should last a maximum of 5 minutes. 5 to 10 minutes will be enough. And what you do, you create your presentation, and you will be provided with a rubric with including the sections that you have to include in the presentation. The point of view will be, again, imagine you are a consultant and that you have been called to present before the management of the company, in the case that you have selected, so that you identify a problem, you explain why this is important for them to address, you come up with an action plan to remedy the problem, and a set of recommendations for the company, and you create this presentation, obviously in Spanish, paying attention to the correct spelling and writing and use of vocabulary and grammar and so on in each one of the slides, and in your Spanish, your narration. I say narration because you will be creating the slides, but you will also be recording a video similar to this one, in which you will record your Spanish narrative or narration as if you were actually on the spot teaching, not teaching, but presenting in front of the management of the company, and you will save this file as an MP4 or video file, and this will be your presentation. You will upload this file, 5 to 10 minutes. Your video presentation will be uploaded to a folder that I will share with you when the time comes, and that will be the first part of the assignment. Okay, so that's the first part. You create your presentation as if you were a consulting firm presenting before the management to help them with a problem they are facing. All of that based on one of the business cases from the packet. Then the part 2, or the second section of this project, will entail the writing of a summary report. This report will be a short 350-word essay, and basically what you will be doing, you will be watching 3 presentation videos from your colleagues or fellow students. You will have access to the folder, and you'll be able to see this everyone else's files. You will choose 3 of them. You will watch these 3 and write a short essay or report with a summary of the content of the 3 videos, and then you will also add your own take, your own subjective opinion on how your fellow students or your colleagues address the problem in each one of those videos. And you can be a little bit free or creative in this part of the summary. Do you agree? Did they do well? Would you have done it differently? Do you think the problem is not as maybe you would have chosen a different problem? How did they tackle this problem? Do you agree with their assessment? Do you think the recommended plan of action makes sense? So in this case, you can engage what they have said in their video. So you watch 3 videos and you create a short summary. As you see, this is not a lot to write, around 350, 400 words with a summary and with some of your views regarding these 3 videos. You will upload the summary report in Learning Suite. So that was an overview of the learning experiences and the tasks or assignments that are linked to our learning outcomes in the semester. And to finish off, I would like to provide some maybe a few pointers, some advice that might be useful to you in order to succeed. Because the question arises, how do I succeed in this course? What can I do to really succeed and make the most of this course? I hope these suggestions may be worthwhile to you. So the first one is inspired by a classic movie called Lawrence of Arabia. This Lawrence of Arabia takes us back to, this is a very long movie. It's famous because of its length. And this movie is set in the Great War, the First World War, and we are looking at the Oriental or Middle Eastern front, and the protagonist is Lawrence. In this case, he is a soldier or an intelligence officer, actually, for the British Army. And the British Army here in this theater of the Middle Eastern front, they were fighting the Ottoman Empire or the Turks. So in the movie, just to summarize the content, tells us the story of Lawrence as he's dispatched by the British intelligence to gather information amongst the Bedouin and Arab tribes in the Arabian Peninsula, so they can gather information and perhaps use these nomads, these Bedouin, maybe rally them together and use them to fight against the Turks as I say, in that part of the Great War front. So in a certain part of the movie, the Lawrence and one of his of the main or groups or group of one of the tribes, they decide they have this plan. They want to attack a certain city called Aqaba, and they want to go to they want to get to the city crossing the desert. The rationale being that the Turks will not be expecting them to come from the desert, and their cannons are pointed towards the sea. It's a coastal city. So the with a handful of soldiers, they set out to cross a deadly desert, the Befut Desert, also called God's Anvil. A certain part of the such a stretch of the road is deadly. So the idea in this case is that the movie shows us Lawrence of Arabia and the other and his fellow soldiers from this Arab tribe riding their camels through the desert. And I find it interesting that since they are traversing a very, it's kind of similar to driving in these very long stretches of road in the western United States. It is very easy to doze off since you are driving in a straight line, as probably you've experienced this driving these trips in which you have to find ways to remain awake because it is so monotonous and so long. The roads are so lonely, and it's really easy to doze off in those situations. So in this case, they had a deadly danger, and so to speak, in this case, a risk was to as they travel, it's easy for them under the heat of the sun to start to doze off and to fall asleep. And one of the main characters of the movie scolds the Englishman Lawrence in this case because he was starting to doze off. And if you fall asleep, as he reminds it, you are drifting, he says. If you start falling asleep, then you will drift away from the group, and before you know it, you'll be lost on your camel because you drifted. You fell asleep on top of the camel, riding the camel under the heat of the sun, and you drifted away. So the idea here that I want to drive home is that in a course like this, that you take remotely, we call it an asynchronous mode of instruction. I think it's called on demand. By BYU, they call it on demand. It is very easy for you to become isolated, to doze off, and to drift. So my advice would be careful. Don't drift. Stay engaged. And you need to do this week by week, day by day. Otherwise, like Lawrence of Arabia, you run the risk of dozing off and being sidetracked and being lost in the desert of the semester. So the practical advice here is start planning your months, start planning your 4 weeks in advance, month by month, or semester in full. Then break that into weeks. Every week on Monday, start looking at the assignments that you have for the remainder of the week. Open Learning Suite and look at the schedule or look at the dashboard, and you will see the week in an overview or a summary of what you have in front of you for the week. So make sure that you know where you stand in that desert, in that territory. So make sure you chart the territory and you know what's coming up each week. And make sure that you have all the deadlines for all the assignments down, noted somewhere with reminders so that you don't miss these deadlines. And mark those deadlines down maybe 1 week out, 2 weeks out in your Monday planning sessions. That's what I would do. I would start with a Monday planning session for the whole week. Divide the month, the first Monday of the month or the first day of the month, look at the whole month, and then make sure that you have sessions, little weekly planning sessions every Monday to start with, and note down all the deadlines that are coming up so you don't miss them. It's really important for you, in order not to drift, in order to not be left behind in the journey, to make sure that the assignments don't trickle from week to week. There's not a backlog of assignments. Make sure that you complete every week and that you leave everything for that week completed and submitted, if at all possible. If you start to accumulate work from week to the next, or to allow this trickle down or this backlog to pile, or these assignments to pile up, it will be very difficult to succeed in the course. So complete each week at a time and make sure that you deliver what you have to deliver, and that you know what deadlines are coming up at least 2 weeks, 1 month out in advance. Writing assignments are particularly important in the sense that I've seen by experience that many students tend to procrastinate writing to the same day of delivery, and this is not acceptable, not for you, for your own standards of quality, or for the standards of quality expected in the course. I would recommend that you start writing early, that you start writing your drafts early on. You plan your writing, you look at the models, and you have a letter, a draft, a rough letter or a rough composition written at least 1 week before the delivery deadline, if not 2 weeks, so that you don't procrastinate and you can follow a checklist. That you can find checklists with recommendations to sort of make sure that you check all the boxes and that the work that you submit is of the highest standards. So don't wait until the deadline to write your compositions. It is easy to have questions. If you have questions along the way, check this orientation module again, watch the video again, review the introductory sections in the course in Learning Suite, review the assignment descriptions and the assignments, the assignment sections in Learning Suite. And if you can find answers to your questions in the course or the Learning Suite platform, make sure you email me to find the answers you need. We can also arrange for Zoom tutorials or interviews if emails don't work. I try to respond to emails within 24 hours so that I'm really responsive. The best way to contact me is via email, and is the fastest way to get to me. And I really make my goal to respond to each one of your emails. So it is better to ask very basic questions, or what you think might be stupid questions or silly questions. I think you should ask them. It's better to get an answer to those questions as soon as possible. So don't hesitate to ask me, even if you feel that you are overdoing it. That's what I'm here for. So make sure you ask questions and get your answers and clarify well in advance. Here's a suggested weekly schedule, very general. You can obviously adapt it to your needs. I've also included a rough estimate of what the working session would last for each one of those dates. I have obviously tried to restrict this to 3 days a week, but you can certainly try to use other days and reduce the blocks of time allotted to each one of these tasks on a weekly basis. But I think it might be useful to you. So on a Monday, the first thing would be to maybe check the dashboard or the schedule in Learning Suite and plan for the week, as I explained or as suggested earlier on. Read your news article, number 1 for the week, and complete the report for that news article. Read the case or the textbook content, depending on whether you have a case day or a textbook day. Complete the textbook activities or the business case sheet and upload those. And I estimate that this should take maybe 2 hours and a half, although each individual will, the duration or the length of time allotted to this may vary from person to person and from day to day. On a Wednesday, I would check the dashboard again to make sure that I'm finding my bearings in the course, and then I will complete the reading of the news article number 2 and the report number for that article number 2, so that I have my 2 articles, and then I would again work on the content for the day, which could be from the textbook or could be from the case packet, and then complete the business case sheet for the packet or the textbook activity for that day. 2.5 hours again. Friday, check the dashboard again, have a look at the next week. Could be useful to remind yourself of what, to keep your memory fresh of what's going on and what's happening and what's coming on in your schedule. And then normally you will see that Fridays are the day to report for your news articles. So make sure you read your article number 3 and you have your completed report number 3 for the news article, so that you can submit your single Microsoft Word file containing the 3 reports for the news articles for the week. And if you have content scheduled from the book or from the textbook or the case packet, complete those activities as well. 2.5 hours again. So this is just, I think this is just a suggestion, but it might be useful for you to adapt this very basic or general weekly schedule to your own schedule and fit this the work for the course with your other classes. So some weeks obviously will not require content for Fridays, only reporting on the news activities. So you may use those days to get ahead with the next week's assignments. You can read additional news readings for the next week, for the week after, or maybe you can use these emptier Fridays to get on or get ahead with your writing for your compositions. Some of the reading or writing can be completed Tuesdays or Thursdays as well. So I've just excluded Tuesdays and Thursdays to organize the content in a 3-day week. But you can use Tuesdays and Thursdays as needed to complete your assignments, obviously. When these writing assignments are due, you should make sure that you include those. As you can see, the schedule that I've suggested does not include time for writing. So these 4 compositions will come up in when time is up to deliver this. You make sure that you schedule enough time for those writing tasks, and again, do not wait until the last minute to submit the compositions or start writing or planning your compositions, and make sure that you check the quality checklists or you consult those quality checklists that I've included by the deadlines in the right column of the schedule. The idea is, remember Lawrence of Arabia and his crossing of the desert. The danger is to drift. So do not drift. Remain engaged with the course content and with Business Spanish, and do so in sessions of at least in 3 sessions or 3 times a week. I think this is more beneficial than maybe cramming all your work in 1 day a week or your reading in 1 day a week. When it comes to learning foreign language learning, smaller sessions spread out in every day or every other day are more effective in improving your learning. So it is better to read 3 separate days than to read 3 newspaper articles on 1 day. So I urge you to remain engaged with the course content, actively engaged at least 3 times a week, in 3 sessions between 1 and 2.5 hours of focused work, so that you don't drift and become separated from the group. And it's really easy to do so in a remote on-demand course mode of instruction. So remember, don't drift, and in order not to drift, you should engage with the course at least 3 times a week in sessions of focus work. Good. So I have an assignment for you. In a Microsoft Word file, I would like you to write 3 short paragraphs in Spanish, obviously. And these 3 paragraphs should be on this next 3 or the following 3 topics, all based on the content of this orientation video or module. Something you look forward to in the class. Is there anything that you look forward in the class or that seems to be exciting about the class that you're looking forward to learn about or to be doing in the class? Write about it in Spanish. Is this something that worries you about the class after you've made it through this long video and looking over the content in Learning Suite? Is there anything that concerns you, that you worry that it might be difficult or that you just raises a red flag for you right now? Write about it. That's number 2. And number 3, something you would like clarification on or about. In this case, you might have questions. You might have things that are not really clear, or maybe I have failed to explain clearly. So I would like you to write between 100 and 150 words for each one of these elements, so that you can engage with the content in this sort of syllabus in video format, this orientation video. So in total, you should write maybe 300, 400, 450, 500 words on each in total, but 100 to 150 in Spanish about each one of these headings. Something you look forward to in the class, algo que me parece muy interesante de la clase o de la asignatura, algo que me preocupa sobre la asignatura y algo sobre lo que tengo dudas o que necesita aclaración. Esas serían las 3 secciones en las que tenemos que escribir en español. Tenéis que escribir en el formato, en un archivo Word, y este archivo Word lo vais a llamar con vuestro nombre y lo vais a subir al enlace que aparece justo debajo de este vídeo en el calendario, the schedule, o en el el panel de control, de dashboard, o en la sección de asignaciones, assignments en Learning Suite. Y por supuesto, esta es una asignación que tiene su fecha límite y también tiene su calificación, ¿vale? Así que esta es la primera tarea que tenéis para el curso y espero que esta guía haya sido útil para ayudaros a tener una visión de conjunto del curso y de las asignaciones, los objetivos de aprendizaje, y tengo muchos deseos de conoceros un poco más durante este curso y de aprender con vosotros sobre el español de los negocios, y espero que sea una experiencia positiva, productiva y de aprendizaje en nuestra área de estudio. Muchas gracias por vuestra atención y hasta muy pronto.